Potassium. A look at the element potassium as it applies to plant metabolic activities. Of particular importance is the potassium transport across the plasmalemma of the guard cells. The opening and closing of potassium channels through the plasmalemma of the guard cells is induced by the reception of red light from phytochromes. The major anion balancing the accumulation of potassium is malate and not chlorine or phosphate. So the malate can actually pick up the potassium and balance it. As it does that, it decreases the potassium concentration on the inside, and that causes potassium to move. Diurnal movement of leaflets of certain species has also been attributed to potassium, together with chlorine as they are transported into specialized cells. Potassium is also important in the regulation of meristematic growth. In order to have proper meristematic growth, you must have the proper balance of ions, which means potassium is used in this as well. Potassium uptake lowers the electrical gradient across the plasmalemma, and therefore less energy is required in the transport against a gradient per unit of hydrogen out of the cytosol into the apoplast. So potassium, acting as a cation, is able to move across the gradients, create a difference in potential so that the cell is able to function properly. Potassium is an extremely important cation here. The acidification of the apoplast results in a loosening of the cell wall material and in the activation of hydrolyzing enzymes. Remember, when plants grow, the cell wall is held together by calcium, a divalent cation. You have to acidify that by adding a monovalent cation, which causes the cell wall to loosen. As the cell wall loosens, it allows for stretching and growth. Calcium comes back in, which will bind it and hold it in the new format. The loosening of the cell wall is a prerequisite for cell expansion. Potassium is also important in meristematic growth in that it is required particularly in polypeptide synthesis in the ribosomes and is probably involved in several steps in the translocation process, including the binding of transfer RNA to the ribosomes. Phytohormones, which are involved in the growth of meristematic tissues, the auxins, are also enhanced by potassium. Potassium is of the utmost importance for water status of the plant. Potassium is an important osmoticum, which contributes to water retention by the plants and high efficiency of water use. Other effects of potassium on plant physiology include the optimum potassium nutrition favors enhanced photosynthesis. Remember, anytime you're dealing with photosynthesis, part of photosynthesis is looking at ion potentials across membranes in order to be able to generate ATP. Potassium will help out with this. Potassium has been shown to promote the de novo synthesis of the enzyme ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase, Ribisco. Therefore, it is extremely important in photosynthesis. Potassium also decreases the diffusion resistance for carbon dioxide in the mesophyll. Potassium enhances the translocation of photosynthate and is related to phloem loading. Again, in order to have phloem loading, you're going to have a certain amount of ions on one side or the other to be able to load things in. So potassium is extremely important in this. Potassium has been shown to be important in the activation and regulation of various enzyme systems. It has also been shown to be essential for protein synthesis. Deficiency. The first indication of deficiency is a reduction of growth rate and later chlorosis and necrosis of the plant. Remember, potassium is everywhere, and therefore it is extremely important. If you have a problem, it's going to show up in a lot of different areas. But first, it's going to reduce plant growth and chlorosis. Remember, we talked about plant growth as far as cell expansion goes and chlorosis as far as photosynthesis goes. Symptoms appear first on the older leaves. Classic demonstration of a mobile element. Symptoms first appear on the older leaves because the material being mobile is easily transported into the younger leaves. In most plant species, the symptoms begin at the margin and tips of the leaves and move inward. In some species, irregularly distributed necrotic spots occur on the leaves. This shows you potassium deficiency on sable palmetto. Sable palmetto is an extremely interesting palm in the southeastern United States. You can see the little dots that are occurring where you're getting potassium deficiency. you're getting growth inwards from the edges, and you're getting this flecking all over the older leaf, which is characteristic of a potassium deficiency. Plants suffering from potassium deficiency show a decrease in turgor and in water stress, and they easily become flaccid because they can't regulate the water properly. The affected plants show increased susceptibility to frost damage, fungal attack, and high salt concentrations. Again, if something is not functioning properly, it cannot defend itself properly. Abnormal development of tissues and cell organelles has been observed in potassium-deficient plants, so all of these become very important. Luxury consumptions. Potassium can be taken up in excess if there is too much available potassium in the soil. Normally, the excess is not isolated or stored. This can lead to imbalances with other elements, especially magnesium. Toxicity. Minor excesses of potassium will not create problems for the plant. However, excess can create imbalances with other elements, especially magnesium, and this can lead to a magnesium deficiency, which can be extremely problematic. Sources of potassium. If you look at potassium fertilizer, we've got a lot of different types of materials. You've got potassium chloride, which is called muriate of potash, which has about 50% potassium. We often express potassium as K2O, which is an oxide of potassium. You've got sulfate of potassium. You're looking at 43%. You can see the sulfate adds sulfur too. You've got a sulfate of potash with magnesium. It drops the amount of potassium down. This also adds magnesium to it. You've got kainite, which is a magnesium sulfate, potassium chloride, sodium chloride material. We've got potassium nitrate, which again is fairly interesting. Potassium metaphosphate, which is interesting as well. It's got high levels of potassium in there, but potassium metaphosphate also has phosphorus. Potassium is a very reactive material because it is a monovalent cation. Application of potassium. The rate of fertilization with potassium depends on soil type, crop species, and stage of plant development. Sandy mineral soils typically require higher rates of potassium-containing fertilizer because potassium doesn't stay localized within the soil. Plants with fibrous root systems are typically more efficient than plants with a taproot system in absorbing potassium. Fibrous root systems explore a larger area, and therefore they can get more potassium in certain places. Potassium fertilization is more critical during vegetative growth than during reproductive growth. The demand is much higher because of the functions of potassium in the plant. Potassium, therefore, is an extremely important material that must be present, is normally found in sufficient amounts, but is extremely important in plant growth.